Imagine, if you will, a pair of young boys taken from the sharecropper's field to being center stage and displayed as sideshow freaks. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. Today, we delve into the Jim Crow South with the story of the Muse Brothers. Hey friends, I'm Xavier and I'm back with another Black Case File for you. Typically, I talk about cases that tend to focus on people of color and the topics vary. Sometimes it's murder, sometimes it's history, sometimes it's mystery, sometimes it's a conspiracy, sometimes it's a murder mystery conspiracy from history. Anyways, if you like this content, make sure to hit that red subscribe button. You can also find me on Instagram at the Black Case Files. Lastly, I have a little playlist that I can add all of these to that should be showing right there. Have fun, binge it, enjoy. Okay, let's get into it. We're still at the circus today, but today we're talking about the Muse Brothers. Before we go any further, major credit goes to Beth Macy, who wrote Truevine, a book detailing the story of the Muse Brothers in far more detail than I could hope. A link to her book is below. Back to the Muse Brothers. George and Willie Muse were two brothers who grew up in Truevine, Virginia, as a part of a sharecropping family that living in a tobacco farming community near Roanoke, Virginia. And they were kidnapped and forced to tour and were exploited for the uniqueness of their albino skin. Albinoism affects the production of melanin, the pigment that colors skin, hair, and eyes. It's a lifelong condition. People with albinoism have a reduced amount of melanin or no melanin at all. This can affect their coloring and their eyesight. Lack of skin pigmentation also makes for more susceptibility to sunburn and skin cancers. Now, according to Willie Muse, it was the uniqueness of their albinoism that led to their abduction in 1899 by a circus man. The circus man, whose name was James Candy Shelton, was a white man scouting for freaks to populate circus sideshows. There are also reports that their mother sent them to the circus as a way to find work that wouldn't harm them due to their skin condition. A man who was 102 years old, Reeves, who has lived in Truevine his whole life, said the Muse Brothers were a cautionary tale for blacks in the Roanoke area when he was growing up. This was the Jim Crow South, where blacks never really felt safe. When a carnival came to town, kids were told, be careful. You don't want to get kidnapped like the Muse Brothers. There were lots of different stories. Some said they were taken outside the church, but that's not what A.J. Reeves remembered. That's right, he said. Every so often, not regular, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, they'd come around, stop by our town, and put up a tent. But Beth Macy, through her research, uncovered another version of the story that involved the Muse brothers' mother, Harriet. For at least 13 years, Harriet Muse searched for her sons. The family says whenever a carnival or fair came to town, she went looking for them. At one point, in an effort to track them down, she placed an ad in a newspaper. It was this information that may have uncovered something startling. That Harriet may have in fact leased her sons out to the circus. She let her sons go with the carnival because she couldn't see a future for them where they were living. With their albino skin, working in the hot sun was dangerous, and the family had little money to support them. After years of looking, she finally found them when the Ringling Brothers Circus came to Roanoke in 1927. In an interview, Beth Macy says, there's some evidence that Harriet Muse may have intentionally leased the brothers out and let them go with a carnival operator who was passing through Covington or Clifton Forge, Virginia. But she wanted them back, and she had no idea where they were. The Muse Brothers performed for years as sideshow attractions, where they were cruelly exploited and frequently portrayed as savages from another country or even Martians. George and Willie were prevented from contacting their family by their manager, who kept them as modern-day slaves since they were unpaid. Quoted later, showmen bragged about buying them from one carnival and then selling them to another like they were chattel. So there's no question they were exploited. There's no question they worked for many years without pay. But trying to figure out what happened at the beginning, what led to it. Well, there's two separate stories out there. There was no escape for them because the only family they had was their mother, Harriet, who they kept being told was dead. So essentially, there was no reason to leave. Their mother, however, was alive and had been searching for them. Like I said before, she spent about 13 years searching for their whereabouts as they were exhibited and made to perform throughout the country under such names as the Ethiopian Monkey Men, Iko and Iko, and Ambassadors from Mars. By that time, the Muse Brothers had left the local carnival circuit and they were headliners with the country's biggest circus. They were musicians now and were known as Iko and Iko, with a variety of lurid backstories to kind of explain who they were, where they came from. They were still under control of the man who said that he was their manager. Harriet Muse made her way to the sideshow and found a place in the front row where she could be seen from the stage. And it was there that George, the older brother, elbowed Willie and said, "Hey, there's our mother. She's not dead." They had been told to quit crying, "Your mother's dead," and according to the press accounts, they sort of dropped their instruments and came down and were enveloped by her. She eventually found the two boys working for the Ringling Brothers Circus, and their family was reunited. Remember, this was a Black woman searching everywhere for her children that were stolen. And she did that. And what she did is still a massive feat of unwavering courage. She sued Ringling Brothers. This was essentially David versus Goliath. But just like with the fabled story, Harriet Muse also won, as she successfully sued Ringling Brothers for the treatment of George and Willie. Beth Macy says she thinks of Harriet Muse as one fierce lady. She couldn't read, she had no education. She did labor her whole life, and she stood up to the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. George and Willie resumed performing for the circus in the late 1920s, and it was here where they finally received pay for their work. George died in 1972, and Willie died in 2001. Well, thanks for joining me and learning a bit about the Muse Brothers. Again, I highly recommend the book Truevine by Beth Macy. Our next story should be about Brittany Griner and the whole situation, kind of like what I did with Jussie Smollett's situation. All right, I'll catch you next time. Bye.